Good morning, coffee moaners. Look who's here. Look who's here. Toffee, say hello. Say hello. Say hello to the people. Say hello to the people. Say hello to the Toffee.
You should have got a nice
Hey,
background
Toffee.
with the
Say
flag,
hello
the
to the
flag.
Say hello. Say hello to the people. Toffee. What's it? What does she? She's so eager and keen. Morning, everyone. Morning, Richard Kavanagh. Morning, Mandy Dent. Sorry, if you're listening on podcast, you think, what the hell is going on? He's talking to his dog. I'm talking to Toffee moaning. Nads.
Toffee moaning.
It's Toffee moaning.
Oh my god!
Oh my god!
We have to do a mug for that.
Toffee moaning, and not surprisingly, her first. Hang on, I'm drinking that.
Toffee moaning.
Toffee moaning, but look what her first story is. Toffee moaning chose a story about Paul O'Grady, who loved dogs. Look at this. Do you like Paul O'Grady?
Oh God, she looks so
Oh my God, look at her hands. Let me show you her paws. Let's go. Look at that. Oh, Toffs. Toffington 2. Toffington. Yabba-da-doo. Yabba-da-da-da-da-doo. Sorry if you're listening on podcast. She's incredibly strokeable today, aren't you? Go on. She's like, I've had enough of you. Go on. What's that? Who's it?
Oh God.
Morning, everyone. Morning, Margaret O'Brien. She is so cute, isn't she? And she put her paw on this story, Paul O'Grady's Last Thank You, front of the Daily Mirror. I was going to play the clip, but I think you should go to Paul O'Grady's Instagram account. This is Paul O'Grady thanked fans for their support in a video filmed just 20 minutes before he passed away. The clip popped up on the phone of Paul's husband, Andre Portasio, yesterday, the second anniversary of the TV star's death, aged 67. It's that weird thing. It's that weird thing that phone memories do. Does your phone do that? Morning, Michelle. Does your phone do that thing where, I mean, I'm not suggesting that he says here, clips remind me how funny and genuine he was. It's a nice thing to share. Widower Andre takes comfort from footage 2 years after death. It's that weird thing where, have you noticed how phones can hijack you? Have you noticed how memories, they can hijack you, can't they? You can be sort of going about your business, and then suddenly your phone throws up a memory. It's like, and this is a very sweet memory, a very bittersweet memory, poignant memory. There's an image of them both when they got married at the bottom. Morning, Natasha. But yeah, I mean, I love the memories, but sometimes the memories can be punched through, and you get a little bit of sadness, and you weren't prepared for them, and you're sort of like, oh, I don't know if I was ready. Sometimes it's like when you hear a sort of emotional tune, and it can hijack your emotions. Anyway, I thought it was very sweet, and I know so many of you are fans of Paul O'Grady. I thought that was a very sweet front cover story. Paul's last thank you. Another story. Has anyone been following this? Medal Ward, the mayor of Amsterdam, has given a hero's medal to a British tourist who ended a knife man's rampage by chasing him through the alleys and tackling him to the ground. Brave or foolish? Film of the incident shows the man kneeling on top of the suspect and threatening to punch him as he waits for police while shoppers... I mean, I was looking at this image thinking, wow. I mean, it's not like he's handcuffed the guy. He's literally just sat on top of him. In a message on Instagram, City Mayor Femke Halsema, 58, thanked the man for his courageous actions and confirmed he had wanted to keep his name out of the news. He's received a hero's badge. Wow. Yeah, Curly Cooks is coming at 11 o'clock. It's a pre-record, but it's a premiere, so you can all share your comments beneath it. It's a Mother's Day special, and it's uber long as well.
Going to be watching and messaging.
I can't hear you, Nads.
Dina's going to be watching and messaging.
All right, Dina's going to be watching and messaging. So there you go. Watch out. She might have your guts for garters. Trump's advance. I'm just going to get rid of the that at the top because you can't see the bloody Trump's advance party. Do you get it? Advance, as in Vance, arrives in Greenland. So unpopular was his visit, they could only have lunch with the army.
40,000 people. No
70,000 people. They knocked up. They actively knocked on front doors, as we said yesterday, and no one wanted to appear. I think the tobogganing team said no. Just having a sip of coffee. Vice President attacks island's poor defense amid fury at takeover bid. So, although Trump has said we're not going to invade with military force, how do they expect to just take it? How are they going to do this? How will they do it? Will they starve it? Will they encourage? I know, I've got a horrible feeling I know what the Americans might do. Here's another headline: as Trump's number 2 and wife visit icy North France, the US should take over Greenland, but we won't send in troops. Let me explain to you how this is going to happen. Russia or China, there's going to be some kind of false flag thing that suddenly happens in Greenland that America then says, look, we have to step in and do something. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if untoward things are being planned elsewhere. US will encourage independence and fix the election. What they're going to do, exactly like Putin has done in Ukraine and like Hitler did in the Sudetenland. Is that what's going to happen? YouTube? I mean, this is quite remarkable, isn't it? So the Vance is very unpopular. I mean, how profoundly lacking in any self-awareness can you be that you can feel so you are so unwelcome, but you still wander around smiling and I mean, have some dignity. Sod off. Ego has landed. This is the Daily Star's take on it, but I also wanted to show you this image above. Pete Hegseth. Apparently, so we have a situation here where not only do Trump's team pretend to want, be advocates for free speech, but only a particular type of free speech. Anyone who speaks for Palestine. If you defend Palestine in America now, you are automatically supporters of Hamas, and you will automatically be arrested by the secret police. I mean, this is what we're dealing with. Americans, do something about this. Is like Stasi Germany. We're in a remarkable situation where we're seeing more and more footage of free Palestinian, not Hamas. There's just as being anti-Israel is an anti-Semitic, being a supporter of a free Palestine doesn't mean you support Hamas. But in America, any advocate for Palestine is being labeled a Hamas supporter, and we are seeing increased footage of plain clothes, government officials arresting people. Yeah. So not only is that happening, but we even have a defense secretary who actually has tattooed about his body his ideology. He has, as we all know, he has the deeply suspect and suspicious, slightly sort of, I don't mean Germanic in a sort of modern day Germany, but sort of, it looks supremacist, the crucifix on his pec. But also up on his arm, apparently, Pete Hegseth, I don't know if you know this, Nads, has another tattoo under his bicep that spells in Arabic, kafir, which means disbeliever or infidel. Critics argue that the tattoo signals hostility towards Islam itself.
Good God.
So he has Islamophobic tattoos on it, virtually around his armpit.
Well, he was thrown out of the army because of their tattoos, because they were deemed extremist.
This is our defense secretary.
Well, not ours.
This is America's defense secretary. So if you say free Palestine somewhere in America now, you potentially will be thrown out of the country. I don't think most people who have advocated for Palestine should travel to America anymore. Because I don't think you'll get in, or B, you could be marched off to some kind of gulag, yeah, in well, weirdly in El Salvador. That seems to be where they send everyone. Online incel accounts rebranded to get around TikTok regulations. There's a lot of stuff in the paper still. The drama Adolescence on Netflix is still generating a lot of news coverage around incels, misogyny, the manosphere, pressures, online bullying, online pressures on kids. And this is a piece in The Guardian saying that advocates of the incel ideology are rebranding, unsurprisingly, as sub-5s. That's the name. And they're adopting now the language of self-improvement to push their content on TikTok. It's a little bit like, you know how I've always said trolls generally use as their photos a sort of fluffy, faux, pretend, positive vibes type thing. So by the same standard, incel ideology and misogynistic kind of accounts are now using the language of self-improvement. But when I read into this article a little bit more, it becomes even more chilling. Hateful material is banned from obviously most social media sites, but accounts disseminating the beliefs are said to be hiding behind new terms and more socially palatable language. It then talks about a concept that's being pushed on TikTok accounts is something called, I don't know if anyone's heard of this, called the PSL scale. So this is what, you know, boys who get trapped in this kind of incel culture, PSL. The PSL acronym comes from the first letters of 3 incel sites: pure hate, sleuth, slut hate, and lookism. Men are rated from PSL gods, bear with me, exceptionally attractive men through to chads, generally attractive men, arriving at sub-5s, unattractive men. So there's a scale of attractiveness to women. Men are then encouraged in a self-improvement way to believe that they can move up these 3 scales by a process called looks maxing, which can be as unproblematic as working out in the gym, but as potentially damaging as changing the structure of your jaw using a hammer. That was the moment where I went, good God. Such theories are said to be bound up with the belief that there's an ideal form of masculinity and that women are to blame. There's something about the whole thing that's so, I mean, it's so fucked up, but it's so weirdly fucked up that a sort of almost a terrorist line of thinking has emerged around. What I can't work out is, are incels actively wanting to be unattractive, or are they indulging or weaponizing a feeling of not like here's a simple question for anyone who's an expert on this. If you're incel minded, but then suddenly you luckily fall upon love with a really nice woman, do you sort of go, oh fuck that incel shit, I've now got a girlfriend? Or does the incelness carry on into your relationship? Can you only be an incel if you don't have relationships with girls? It's just weird. It's just weird. But in the same spirit, I just want to share this with you. There's a periodic table of sinister emojis. And this is interesting because this is for working parents. I don't know if you remember in the film Adolescence, Ashley Walters' son at one point tries to unpack the meaning of emojis to his dad. His son unpacks them to his dad because he says, you're floundering around. It's embarrassing. And this is a periodic table that's been created by an organization called For Working Parents. Parents being warned by police and schools about a sinister emoji code, which we saw in Adolescence. Forces and teachers across Britain have issued parents with a periodic table of sinister emojis said to be used by under 18s to surreptitiously discuss violence, sex, and extremism. And I thought I'd pop this up because it might just be a useful guide for anyone who, I don't know, you are perhaps worried or you're suspicious, you know, about your kids' behaviors. And don't forget, not all emojis are available on all devices. And I think you can import certain emojis and things like that. There are some obvious ones there, like the aubergine and the splashy water, but all of the druggy ones and all the male hate ones, anti-women on the far right, the ghost, the devil's face, the 100, all that sort of stuff. Incel, the pill, the beans, incel, the apple, incel. I think it's kind of useful. So I think if you go online and look up forworkingparents.com. But some critics have said that in issuing this guide, it reflects a moral panic. Do you agree? That's gripped the country following the television program. It's produced by the Education Charity for Working Parents. There are 60 symbols here. A hedgehog denotes neo-Nazism. A pill means incel, and the OK hand gesture is said to refer to the far right. Balloons are for laughing gas, a ghost for anti-woman, and the devil for lust. It's like a modern twisted form of hieroglyphics, isn't it? It's just awful. And so a number of the papers are running with this. Here's some, snowflakes for cocaine and leaves for cannabis. I mean, some of them are pretty damn obvious. I mean, look, a horse's head for ketamine. Crime is obviously dynamite. Murder. Threat is an ambulance key. So yeah, no, that's all quite. Now look at this story. I pulled this. This was very small. It was like deep within the Times. I thought, look at this for an idea for punishment. VR headset puts abusers in victims' shoes. I never really thought of this. I mean, this could be radical. In virtual reality, this is a report, as I say, in the Times. The person writing the piece says, I've stepped into the shoes of a victim of domestic violence. And this is a virtual reality program that's designed to tackle violence in the home by allowing perpetrators to experience their crime from the point of view of their victim. And I'm it's like with all new ideas, obviously there'll be some catch here, there'll be some ethical catch somewhere, I don't know what. But I thought, fuck me, this is a brilliant idea. I think this is a brilliant idea I suppose you'd have the situation like, they can't force people to appear in court unless you drag them there. The table, it's in all the papers, the periodic table, just cutting back to that. But if you go to a website called www.forworkingparents.com, I'll put the link underneath this at the end. And it's in if you want the paper, it's in the Telegraph and in the Times today, and the Mail. I don't know. I can't think what abusers will get off on that. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, Nikki Bull, that's a very good point. But they're not committing another crime, and you get the possibility of them at least being able to virtually step through what it's like to be on the receiving end of what they've meted out. What you're saying is, could they get a thrill from, I don't know, they've already had the thrill, they've already been convicted, they've already done the crime. Maybe there's just something to be had in making them understand in a more vivid fashion the nuts and bolts of the fear. I guess there's good evidence for restorative justice, which is kind of similar, says Amy Waters. Lucy Whitman, what do you think of this as an idea? I think that's excellent, says Lucy Williams. I think it's more aimed at therapy. Yes, no, I think it is. The psychologist who designed the V Respect Me program said the purpose was to challenge the attitudes of abusers by allowing them to experience their behavior from the point of view of the victim. We want to improve empathy in men who have been violent towards their partners. The early results, he says, have been positive, and we can see a tendency towards improving empathy. Domestic abusers typically have little emotional understanding of the impact of their actions. There is often a lack of empathy in this. I mean, I don't think a VR set is going to give you empathy.
Yeah, it's not going to change.
But it's, it's not going to change nothing. Anyone in the UK who knows Esther Ranson, very sad stories in a lot of the papers. Her daughter saying, my mother is too poorly. Let me pop an image up in case you don't know who she is. Esther Ranson on the right, very famous, historic Dame Esther Ranson, TV presenter. Dignitas is out of the window for Dame Esther Ranson. Her daughter has said the health of the terminally ill television presenter and journalist has deteriorated so much that she is no longer well enough to travel to the clinic. The 84-year-old has been a staunch advocate for assisted dying. It's just sad. It's just sad. I mean, I suppose you could argue there's just a very sad inevitability in that. But I know she wanted to go to Dignitas. She has been incredibly outspoken about the assisted dying bill. And so I don't know. There's just a very, very sad story. Legal Spotlight casts Depardieu in a different role. This is the developing story that Gerard Depardieu, France is having a sort of #MeToo moment, or has had a #MeToo moment, and yet weirdly, so many people in France are wanting to defend the alleged groping. Some have said much worse than that, alleged rape, sexual assault, etc., of Gerard Depardieu. But I mean, quite numerous women have come out in his defense, sort of saying, this is an era, it's a different time. We're trying to pull down all the male icons I don't know if that just speaks to, anyway, he's shuffled into, the Times says he's shuffled into court this week, accused of groping 2 women. And, you know, again, it is a different era. I mean, I think he's incandescent, but there's numerous people, numerous high profile women, female kind of actors and actresses and what have you, who've kind of sort of said, oh no, leave him alone. We're trying to kind of wreck our kind of, you know, our sort of movie royalty and all this kind of stuff. I'm only popping this up because it's in every single paper. And you know, this is the evolving story of Prince Harry and his charity, that, you know, all sorts of kind of shenanigans have kicked off. I read somewhere that some of the spat was to do with his fundraising through the sport of polo, and a feeling that this was sort of spoke to a colonial past. I think if you've got a prince as the head of a charity, you're inherently engaging with a colonial past, aren't you? But anyway, this is the idea that he's disentangled from the charity that he you know, his mother, you know, I think he set up or she set up. But the thing is that everywhere you look, there are images. And look at this. I just want to show you this image here. Prince Harry the Spare. They have actively added red into his eyes. It is so apparent that they're wanting to sort of suggest he's on his own. It's not so obvious there, but they have actively injected red ink into his eyes. That is a digitally enhanced sadness. I'm telling you that right now. As they want to show him as isolated and alienated, and he just wants a beer with the guys, but he's only got Meghan's friends' husbands. I mean, it's God, pathetic. It's just pathetic. It really is. DIY smear test to help eradicate cervical cancer by 2040. DIY smear tests are part of an NHS plan to eradicate cervical cancer by 2040. Outgoing NHS England boss Amanda Pritchard has unveiled measures to achieve the world-leading ambition. Currently, screening involves a medic taking a sample. Embarrassment is thought to be a major reason why screening rates have fallen in recent years. I think this has got to be something that's just incredibly, you know, important to achieve. 2 people a day die from cervical cancer. And the disease claimed the life of, obviously, celeb Big Brother star Jade Goody at the age of 27. Ambitious cervical rates have dropped for women in their 20s who received the HPV vaccine, but they have increased for women aged 30 to 44. I think it's like with a prostate, so many of these conditions, embarrassment is such a major part of it, isn't it? Embarrassment is such a major part of, or shyness of people not getting tested and things like that. I just want to, this is a weird one, this is very British. Derek Hatton is in court for corruption. Do you remember him? Liverpool, was he former Liverpool mayor? Or militant Labour? Although I was always a Labour Party supporter as a young teen in the 80s, I always found him really threatening and slightly distasteful. So it kind of comes as no surprise to me that he's up. I mean, they haven't found him guilty yet, but he's up for corruption. But here he is now. I think he's. I'm not suggesting for a minute he might have had a bit of work, but you don't want to get on the wrong side of Derek Hatton. Never felt like you could get on the wrong side of Derek Hatton. But I thought this was funny. Judge tells Derek Hatton no chewing in my court. And I don't know why, but this headline just took me back to the 80s. And I thought, yeah, he was a cocky fucker, wasn't he? He was always a cocky fucker. Really was. And oh my God, I find him really scary. Venice, Tori, I don't know if you're in the room, Tori. Venice is bracing for Jeff Bezos's wedding. Such a nuisance, say Venice. I mean, I don't know how they get a quote from a city. There we go. Such a nuisance. Venice braced for Bezos's wedding ceremony. Do you remember George Clooney and Amal Clooney? They took over Venice. Poor old Venice. I mean, the thing about Venice is that when a major, I don't know, sort of oligarch or billionaire or, you know, major celebrity like George Clooney decides we're going to have Venice for our wedding, because there's no road, you can't escape quickly. You have to dive into the water to get away. The news this week that Venice will host the nuptials of Jeff Bezos has not been met with as much encouragement or enthusiasm as George Clooney. It's due to take place between the 24th and 26th of June. According to reports in the Italian press, wedding planners have fully booked 5 of Venice's plushest hotels and reserved almost the entire fleet of the city's water taxis. Wow. So he's basically bought Venice for 3 days. What a weird world we live in, eh? What a weird world. What do you think this headline is all about? Not heartthrobs, but height throbs. Oh, happy birthday, Elaine. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Elaine. Happy birthday to you. Oh, sweetheart. I hope you have a lovely, lovely day, my darling. A lovely day in the sun. Sorry, I'm just having to just sort something out here. So, height throbs. What do we think height throbs is all about? Women who fancy short blokes. Is Jeff Bezos short? I think he might be. No decent person in Liverpool likes Hatton. Dislike the Tories is still prevalent. There you go, Jane Bentley. This is women who like tiny stars. Women fancy short blokes. I don't know if this is true. I just think this might have been written by a short bloke. Oh, and also a happy birthday, just quickly. A happy belated birthday to Melanie Wright. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Melanie. Happy birthday to you. This is the top 10 tiny stars. Number 1 is Jeremy Allen White from The Bear. Then Sam Rockwell, Tom Holland, Ashley. I didn't realize Ashley Waters was short. Kevin Hart, Barry Keoghan, Kit Harington, Tom Cruise, and James McAvoy. And a happy birthday to Deborah's husband. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Deborah's husband. I'm sure you have a name.
Happy birthday to you.
And finally, what's my finally? Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Men will never tire of boobs. Apparently, this is a study. This is a bona fide study. The myth that men are obsessed with boobs only because they're usually covered up has been busted. Blokes never get bored of them, even if they see them all the time. A study by researchers was aimed to discover if Western male attitudes to breasts was merely cultural. But a research team flew to talk to a remote Indonesian tribe in Western New Guinea. This is serious stuff. The Dani women always went topless until Western influence. The team asked 40 older men about their attitudes to breasts, and they've just always been obsessed with them. They were asked how often they touch. What I couldn't believe was that this was actually a scientific experiment. Happy birthday, David. Anyway, straight off the back of your birthday, we talked about boobs. Anyway, guys, get yourselves ready. You've got 10 minutes. Get a cup of tea, get a cup of coffee. The Curly Cooks is landing, and it's a nice big Mother's Day epic friendly number full of ambition.
Well, hang on.
It's full of
ambition.
ambition.
It was supposed to be like all lyrical and wonderful on Mother's Day, but Dina was a bit feisty.
When is she not?
Well, I was going to attempt because she didn't want to attempt it. Then she took over, so it's a bit sisterly fighting. The most beautiful cake, but did we manage to pull it off or not?
Oh, and there's lots of silliness, lots of fun.
Yes.
So go and enjoy yourselves.